Good morning, Mr. Tarun. Good morning. How are you doing? See, I was on time today. You were late. No, actually, I was 2 minutes late. But, but, better than before, right? Better than before. We're gonna begin 5 minutes early, and that's so nice. So, there you go. YouTube, LinkedIn, and everything will be sorted. If you can hear me, folks on LinkedIn, let me know. '75th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Great. Sent the invitation. All people do. Done. We're done. Better be early than late. And better be late than never. Right? Better be early than late. And better be late than never. So, we are ready. I hope you can hear me. Let me check myself on LinkedIn. So, yeah, the LinkedIn is fine. Which means we should begin. We should begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. We deserve it. It's that good. It makes everything make sense. Right? Let's begin, folks. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, we've got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition, the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. I get lucky every day, do you? And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having hot water with black pepper in it. Always works. And here we go. Nice. Let's do it again. Beautiful. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. Mr. Modi ji has given a speech. It was an inauguration of Kartavya Bhavan or something. It was an address to the Kartavya Bhavan. And he gave the speech that will shield farmers at any cost. And I'll have to pay a personal price, but we'll do it. So the rhetoric is that, we're doing it for the farmers. We're protecting ourselves from the farmers. We're protecting our farmers from foreign exports and imports essentially. But conflicts are so deep, but they're trying their best to actually alleviate the situation and get the nation together, right? And I'll have to pay a personal price. With everything that's going on in the country, with everything that's going on in the country, you know what Babus at Kartavya Bhavan did? So they wrote a letter to the government saying that these open offices are, uh, you know, hurting the integrity of dignity of their work. They are causing distractions. They earlier used to have rooms, so these open offices, like usual offices that we have, that the startup world, the corporate world has, the desks with, they say they are hurting confidentiality and hurting dignity and causing intermittent distractions. The almiras are not that long and they cause distractions. The workplace is essentially deprived of dignity because they want separate rooms for themselves. That's the concern that all of these people have come out with together, you know. So just yesterday I wrote a post about the situation with India and why we couldn't do anything at the global stage, essentially as a country of 2 billion, 1.5 billion now, 1.4, basically a lot of people, and we've had a lot of opportunities and we've squandered those opportunities as a nation together, right, for years. Why is that? And I wrote, my thesis was that it's because of the Babu Shahi, the bureaucracy. These people don't let anything happen. They don't let any work, go through. They're always hurting, coming in the way of any good work, right? The license Raj, or let's say the Babu Shahi, the bureaucratic red tape, it's called, has been hurting the country. And the only thing that we've been able to do at the global stage is Indian IT outsourcing. And if you trace the origin of Indian IT outsourcing, the only reason it could grow as an industry was because it wasn't regulated. You know, it was unregulated. It wasn't like these people couldn't come in the way. These people couldn't understand what these IT outsourcing companies were doing in the beginning, right? And by the time they got to know, it was too late. So Infosys started in 1976 or something, right? At that time, these people had no clue. 1986, 1976, 1978, 81. That's when all of these companies started picking up, right? And at that time, it was not really something that they understood well. So they couldn't come in the way. But factories, if you're setting up a shop, if you're setting up anything, then you deal with the bureaucratic red tape and then you know how hard it is to do anything in India. So these people have been literally the dead weight that this country has been lifting forever, right? They are the lords from the British era, essentially still hurting the country, right? The Lal Batti bureaucrats, the Babus, and when Mr. Modi was talking about such things of global consequence, where US with $100 billion in exports from India is giving tariffs, these people were saying that this office, this open office is cutting our dignity. So you can't hate these guys enough, essentially. That's the bottom line. Moving on. So regarding the tariff news, there's a lot of action. So India is trying to take a relook at the US market access offer. They're reviewing the bilateral trade agreement. They're trying to. Mr. Tushar Tiwari asks a pertinent question. Do we have any signs of this Babu behavior changing in the near future? Is the big question. So, Mr. Tiwari, we people who followed, Indian politics and Indian right, essentially had great hopes from this particular administration to actually cut the red tape, change the bureaucracy, and so on and so forth, right? and these people talked a lot about lateral entry. They talked a lot about changing the bureaucracy from within, right? And it was a very, very big case for them. However, you know, they've not been successful. So if you look at lateral entry as a cause is dead. Lateral entry was a great idea to reform the bureaucracy. So instead of, having people, the career bureaucrats, lateral entry talked about getting people from the industry, outside industry, and experienced people doing good work, and you know, but lateral entry is basically done now. So no reforms as far as bureaucracy have been successful. They talked about firing a lot of bureaucrats. They talked about accountability, but they've not been able to fire a lot of bureaucrats. It's basically inconsequential, the number. So no accountability. That's why Indian, if you look at, let's say, UP, where I come from, and Bihar, and a bit of Jharkhand, not entire Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and even Bengal, everybody wants to be a bureaucrat, right? Everybody wants to be a UPSC aspirant, right? Because uh, the deal is that if you get in, you don't get out, and you can just keep looting the country. So I was sitting with a bureaucrat, okay, who was overseeing a project in Bihar, some highway project or something, a huge project, and he said that 2%, 2% तो बनता है उस project का, 1% or 2%. That was like a 10,000 crore rupee project, right? So 1% of 10,000 crore is how much? 100 crores. So that guy was talking about literally swallowing like 100 to 200 crores from one project, you know, and that was just one project. So that's why Indian youth has this aspiration of becoming a bureaucrat, because once you get in, you know, there's no way you go out, and then you can just keep looting the country forever and without any consequence, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying everybody is like that. Of course, there must be some good people who, care about the country, and that's why they're going for it. But largely, that is the case. Mr. Tarun says nothing's changed, only waters have been gotten more muddier. But the credit is that these people have been able to, this administration has been able to get them out of the way in a few places, right? That's been this government's victory. So the design of these policies, whatever policies the government has been implementing, the single window system, the web portals, let's say direct benefit transfer schemes, and so on and so on. These things have reduced the need of visiting bureaucrats, or going to bureaucrats. So, as Scott Adams sir said, corruption happens when there are three things: there are people, there is time, and there is money, right? You can't fight time, you can't reduce money. The only thing you can do is reduce the number of people in the game, right? And that's what this government has been trying to do. That just make policies which don't require people. People meaning, the bureaucrats, essentially. So Mr. Tiwari says the intent was there, but results have failed. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And this is pretty disturbing time for the country. Harrowing night for us. Trade in state of shock. Exporters recall moment. US imposed 50% tariff. Electronics industry to face $30 billion. A loss of $30 billion in opportunity if this is continued. If the tariff situation is continued, electronics, first smartphones, then components, then semiconductors, they're gonna have a loss of $30 billion worth of opportunity, according to some estimates. So because most of US electronics that India exports, a lot of it, like 30-40% of it goes to US, right? Half of our smartphone exports, 10 billion worth of exports go to US. So they say that electronics is going to be a very, very difficult play. And downstream effects of electronics are going to be huge, because electronics was supposed to be the fulcrum of Indian Revolution, right? The new one. So this is pretty damning. Also, uh, in the post, in yesterday's post, I had written the importance of leverage, right? How you China has been able to gather real leverage by establishing itself as literally the most important part of many industries. Let's say pharma. 90% of APIs come from China, right? You don't have to fire a bullet. You just block your supply of APIs and people will start dropping dead right off the bat, right? That is China's strength as far as pharma sector is considered. India is said to be a pharmacy of the world, but even 60-70% of even our APIs come from China. So we are essentially just doing the trading essentially, right? And not just pharma, solar is completely dependent on China. Every value chain, right from wafers to everything, it's all China. 97%, 90%, 92%, all of those things, production level, step by step, entire value chain China controls. So you can't move a muscle without China say so. And then EVs, right? They blocked the rare earth minerals, and we saw what happened, right? We saw what Bajaj said. They said we're going to stop the supply and so on and so forth, because rare earth magnets had being blocked. Not just rare earth, they hold all the component manufacturing for anodes, for cathodes, for the uh, electrolyzers, everything, basically stabilizers. They control all the equipment, right from the materials to refining to not even mining. They control everything. So it's just three industries, uh, you know electric vehicles, solar, and this one, pharma. Nobody can do anything without China. So they have absolute leverage there. Where does India have leverage? India has no leverage. India has an Indian IT outsourcing play, so support will go down. But other than that, we only export like 75% of the turmeric. That's what we have as leverage. So we are totally dependent on the global economy. We are just a market. All we can do is like tell companies that hey, we're gonna block you. We can, but how can we block Google, right? How can we block Facebook? How can we block all of these companies? They really turn things around here. So that's that. Mr. Tarun says India has an import of around $60 billion from China. It's been going up. By the way, Chinese exports and orders have gone up ever since this announcement has happened. And that is what's going on. Indian incorporate CEOs have talked about brand India. They say we have to build an unapologetic superpower. Mr. Dipinder Goyal, the founder of Zomato Eternal, says that people will continue to bully us and we will have to be an unapologetic superpower. Mr. Harsh Goenka from RPG Group also said something, and many people basically came forward. Mr. Anand Mahindra wrote something, nothing very insightful, but yeah, they supported the Indian government. They said, we've got to do something about it. Uh, that's that. Moving on. Tata and Shapurji Palanji Group have been talking about exit. So Shapurji Palanji Group has like 18% stake in Tata Trusts, Tata Sons, the unlisted company, and they have pledged all those shares to take care of the debt that they have. The debt is huge, and they are really knocking on all doors to get that debt sorted, refinanced. The interest rates on that refinancing are extremely high. It's just crazy the kind of debt Shapurji Palanji has and the interest it's willing to pay for it. So now what they have been trying is that if Tata Sons gets listed, their debt will essentially, the trouble will be over, because then they can think about refinancing, better refinancing, because the share gets listed, right? But Tata Trusts doesn't want shares to get listed, so they're talking about exiting. So there's a framework according to which Tata would have had to list, but Tata doesn't want to list, so they're talking. Mr. Chandrasekharan is talking to Mr. Shapoor. The relationship soured when Mr. Cyrus Mistry had a conflict with Mr. Ratan Tata. Mr. Cyrus Mistry is no more, and neither is Mr. Ratan Tata. Rest in peace. But now, the junior partners, the financiers of Tata Group, that was the Shapoorji Palanji Group, might be looking at an easier exit, so to speak. Speaking of easy, what's not easy is that auto sales have fallen 4.3% in July on high base. So, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we discussed that SUVs had fallen of a large base. This is the first time SUVs have had fallen in sales, and we were thinking, I was thinking, is this gonna signal an overall decline, or is it a signal that entry level cars will be making up for it? So I was more inclined towards entry level cars making up for the SUV decline. But Mr. Mittal, my brother, who's an auto industry veteran, he said it's gonna be an overall decline, and it is an overall decline. 4.3% sales fall. Consumer vehicles, passenger vehicles, two wheelers, three wheelers, everything is fallen. However, tractors have gone up because of monsoons, right? So tractor sales are up. Everything else is down. So 4.3 decline. This essentially means that this data is of July, right? Vehicle registration data. So a lot of things are yet to kick in, which were supposed to lead to changes. So we need to watch August, how it brings. But this is the scene for July. Overall decline, which is terrible. Promoter company may sell 0.8% in Airtel. 8%. 0.8% in Airtel is worth like 9,000 crores. 9,300 crores. So that's happening. OpenAI is looking at launching more products for the Indian market. Like if India had a very aggressive kind of a leadership, a very temperamental leadership, they would have blocked these OpenAI guys, right? They would have just stopped them from accessing Indian market, Indian data, everything. Because let's say we couldn't stop social networking like China did. They built their own social networking apps, and now their social networking apps have actually hurt Facebook, Meta, right? ByteDance has kicked Meta's ass. TikTok is bigger than Instagram, essentially. So we couldn't stop the social networking play. We couldn't stop, before social networking websites, all the Googles and Yahoos of the world. We couldn't make any of our own products. We couldn't make our own YouTube, right? But we can block these particular guys, right? The next wave, the agentic AI, because they're going to be training on our data, and then these people will screw us up. So if it's a trade war, essentially, just block Sam Altman from accessing India's data, and then people will be forced to use whatever we have, and maybe that protectionism will actually help Indian economy, right? But we are not that kind of a leadership, so that's not going to happen. Let's see what happens. Moving on. By the way, that's how China grew. So a lot of people who cry protectionism is bad. Protectionism is what built China. That's the God's honest truth, right? Protectionism is what built China. It's impossible to do business in China without a local Chinese partner, 50-50. Right? You got to watch Travis Kalanick interview at All In Summit, where he said, people told me that you need to have partnerships, in China. And nobody was able to explain to me why. So we went ahead alone. And when we went ahead, everything, people judged us equally, judged Uber and Didi equally. But then China, you know, made Apple invest in our competitor. China made, now Apple doesn't invest in companies, but somehow China got them to actually invest in Didi, Apple to invest in Didi. And then these people started investing in our competitors worldwide. And then essentially the government, also started extremely heavily supporting these people financially and otherwise. And then we had to burn a lot of money to be able to get like 20% share in Didi. So we had to sell out, right? So then the natural question was, why didn't you go with the original partnership of 50-50%? You fool. You talked about being such a savage that, oh, nobody could explain to me why. This was the reason why, right? This was the reason why. So China has grown on the back of extraordinary protectionism. But when you think about in those terms, a lot of Indian, stooges of China will come to you saying that protectionism is bad. These people should be investigated. Moving on. New animation wave is turning heads and screens. Maha Avatar Narsimha's success signals growing audience the appetite for animated movies. So there's a movie called Maha Avatar Narsimha. It's a 15 crore budget movie, which has done a box office of 114 crore in the past 2 weeks. It's competing with big budget films, 114 crores at a budget of 15 crores. So let's say if the budget was 15 crores, PNA should have been like 10 crores, but they say without much marketing. So let's say they had a marketing budget of 5 crores, maybe, right? So on a 20 crore budget, they could do a 114 crore, let's say 110 crores. 114 crore worth of box office, that's essentially, how much is that? 56 crores. 56 crores in net, right? Because 50% goes to the theaters. So on a budget of 20 crores, they could make 56 crores. That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. People are saying that Indian animation has a lot of scope, which is so true. Basically, this is an ongoing story. We discussed this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how Mr. Amish Tripathi is working on games, right? Which talk about Indian origin stories, mythology, people say, Indian Vedic history or whatever. So he talked about that could be a cultural export. Bollywood isn't a cultural export. Bollywood is falling, and gaming as an industry is much bigger than Bollywood. And gaming and animation are like brothers and sisters, right? They're siblings essentially. So I'm very happy. As a kid, I wanted to be an animator because I loved cartoons. I loved video games, as every kid does, and I thought, animation. That's what I want to do. I want to make movies. So that's that. Apart from Mahavir Narsimha, a lot of foreign animated movies have also done good business in India. Spider-Man, Spideyverse, 56.3 crores. Incredibles 2, 54 crores. Frozen 2, 54 crores. Kung Fu Panda, 32 crores. And so on. So their contribution in the Indian box office is growing. Moving on. Coca-Cola jubilant to step up focus on profitability and costs. As we know, Jubilant has acquired Coca-Cola bottling, 40% stake. So that's that. Mr. Tarun says, you had said you also wanted to be a game designer. No, animator. Talked about animations. Loved anime. And as I said, animation and game development essentially are very, very close, right? So that's what, as a kid, that was a dream, right? Because it seemed like such a beautiful thing. As an animator, you could also create education tools. And we actually ventured back in 2015 when we were college kids. We wanted to make tutorial videos, animated tutorial videos for students, because that's nice. So we really interested in that industry. Loved it as a kid. Moving on. medical device firms sound the alarm over new steel standards. So, government has regulated the medical industry, steel imports. So, medical devices import steel, of course, and that steel, the government says, has to be BIS regulated. Now, the problem is that that steel is very low on quantum, very low on quantum. Obviously, right? These are precision tools. Precision tools are not high volume tools, right? So, very, very low quantum. That these people are saying that, hey, man, we can't do this, because getting that kind of a regulation certification, BIS certification for this quantum of material would be bad news. So uh, that's the contention that they are putting forward. Flag shortage risk over rule mandating BIS not for raw materials in finished semi-finished items. Essentially, that's the philosophical disagreement there. Moving on, slim pill Monjaro sees rapid weight gain in Indian market. Monjaro, the weight loss drug, 100 crore in sales already in 4 months. Sales are doubling every month. If this happens, it's gonna touch like 500 crores. But then it's gonna have a problem because the generics will be out in the market, right, very soon. And when the generics come, they'll be priced lower. So the pricing, essentially the profit making time, the gold rush is limited. But just imagine, man, 100 crores and it's gonna go up to 500 crores. And then generics are gonna come at play and everybody's gonna be buying these drugs. This is deeply worrying to me. Personally, I think it's playing with fire, you know. This cannot be a safe thing. This cannot be a safe thing, as I think. So if this month on month doubling continues 500 crore by March, this is what happened. After that, there could be a price erosion in the segment as generic versions of rival GLP-1 molecule semaglutide branded as Wegovy are expected to flood the market. So that's a bit of a trouble. July sales hit 447 crores, double from June. So that's a bit of a problem. Dabur targets double-digit growth. Moving on. Mr. Tarun, I took your advice. So on the title, I changed episode 75 Thinkers Frequency, daily discussions on business and finance. I removed Nishant Mittal. It hurt me. But I did that anyway. Government to award 7 lakh crore road projects in FY26, 10 lakh crore annually from FY27, says Mr. Nitin Gadkari. Mr. Nitin Gadkari says 7 lakh rupees road projects in FY26. So 1 lakh crore is 12 to 14 billion dollars, right? So 84 billion dollars worth of road projects will be given. 85 billion dollars worth of road projects will be given in FY26, and 10 lakh crore annually. That is 120 billion dollar. So what Mr. Nitin Gadkari is hoping for is 100 kilometer of road construction every day. We peaked at 37 kilometers in 2021, I guess. That's what our peak was. Yeah, 2020-21, we did 37 kilometers per day of road construction, which is extraordinary. We used to be at like 7-8 kilometers per day. But then Mr. Nitin Gadkari came and, he really put the pedal to the metal. We started inching up from 7, we went up to 12, 15, 18, 20, 21, 25, 30, and then 37. So 37 kilometers per day of road is just extraordinary. As we've discussed, road has the answers to everything. Road essentially decreases logistics cost. Road increases the product durability, or let's say product losses, leakages, because products get hurt if roads are bad. If you can construct roads, the logistics costs go down. And if logistics costs go down by, let's say, 1% of GDP, growth is spurred like nothing, right? nothing else. So 100 kilometers of road construction per day is the target of Mr. Nitin Gadkari, and he says that reiterated his desire, but didn't give any timeline. So it's still a dream. Mr. Tarun says 2% तो चाहिए वाले भी आ जाएंगे. Oh, you're talking about the babus. Well, uh, national highways have been pretty clear, by the way. They've always stuck to the budgets, but you're right. Wherever it is babus, you can expect some leakage, definitely. Which is so sad, right? Just think about it. I'm here working, building a company, doing everything I can. So many people are working jobs, they're working hard, and then they get fired for no reason, right? Paytm just fired 4,600 people, by the way, you know. So you're working hard, then you get fired, and then you're fighting for a new job, you're trying to raise a family, whatever you're doing, you're on your own. And then you see these babus, they can't get fired. Nobody can fire them. That Justice Verma is still, that case is pending. He's not been impeached as of now. So these people come, they loot the country, they block progress, they take bribes from people who are just trying to make an honest living, and they're boasting while they're at it. So they're like telling us, I didn't ask for that information, right? He was boasting. So that's how bad this is, but this is what it is, right? uh, Starlink to store Indian data locally. Starlink to store Indian data locally. Starlink is getting the nod. So are other people like Amazon Kuiper. Then there's gonna be Airtel, Eutelstat, OneWeb. Then there's gonna be Reliance. Vodafone is also trying to tie up with people. So Satcom is going to be live sometime soon. Security conditions include establishment of Earth station gateways in India. No foreign routing or mirroring of user traffic. So that's going to happen. Reliance luxury business out of style in FY25 as demand dips. Well, demand is dipping. The FMCG players, they essentially showed an early sign of revival that was mostly on the bottom of the pyramid kind of a segment. Overall, it's still pretty shitty, right? Jio tops global telecom charts with 480 million users. Reliance Jio has emerged as the world's largest telecom operator with 480 million users. Well, of course, India has 1.4 billion people, right? So no surprise there. By the way, India's data costs have been cheapest data costs that India has. It's just amazing. 10 cents per GB when the average global price is $2.5 in US, I think. Not average in US, or maybe the average. India is one of the cheapest countries for data. But does it help us? Because out of the 6.5 hours that we spend on the internet, Indians essentially spend on an average some 6.5 hours on the smartphone. 6.5 hours. And only 1.5 hours out of those 6.5 hours are utilitarian. So that is 5 hours of just leisurely reel scrolling that is happening at a scale which is basically unfathomable, right? So that's that. Mr. Adani, India to be a $25 trillion powerhouse by 2050. Now, Mr. Adani has given a speech at IIM Lucknow. Was it Lucknow or Indore? Yeah. So, IIM, yeah, Lucknow. So, he gave a beautiful speech, man. Whoever wrote his speech really deserves a raise. And he said a lot of good things. He said, Dharavi is just not just a slum. Dharavi is a symbol that people have been robbed of the dignity of a city that they built. A city that grew, but they didn't get any benefit of its growth. The people who built the city, and he really gave some poetic lines. So one of them is quoted here. He says, Frameworks that you study, like DC model, Porter's five forces, and SWOT, have their place in the world of business, but these are built on assumptions and hindsight. They teach you how to minimize risk, but not maximize the future, because future will never belong to those who play it safe. It belongs to those who maximize possibility. Then he said, which is the most impressive part. What I can state with confidence is that your most productive years will coincide with India's most powerful years. Your career and our country will rise together. You'll not be looking at a 5 trillion or $10 trillion economy, but you will be looking at an India that will be a $25 trillion powerhouse by 2050. The global center of gravity will shift and it will be towards you and towards India. Now that's a good speech. Good speech when it comes to Dharavi, because Dharavi project, which is like a 1 lakh crore project, Dharavi is the Asia's largest slum. It's the slum of all slums. It's basically a country, right? It's a different planet, and they are trying to rebuild it and into a proper housing society with parks and with business complexes and so on and so forth. And that's like extraordinarily ambitious, right? So talking about Dharavi, that Dharavi is a symbol of people who saw the city growing but didn't benefit from it. And then that your best years will coincide with India's more powerful years. So that's pretty good lines. Whoever wrote his speech must be a good writer. Adanis have been castigated a lot in India by Indians, majorly because of political, situations. But they have been the front runners of the Indian private capex story. Without Adani's, Indian private capex would have been nothing, right? Essentially, they have been the cornerstone of the Indian private capex industries. And anyone who knows anything about public policy, about business, about finance, about flow of money and investments, knows how India is desperate for more private capex, right? So we need better ports, we need more airports, we need more roads, and we need more plants. We need a lot of private capex, and Adanis have taken a lot of risk. They've taken a lot of debt and went on to build good things, right? And they've been able to manage their debt. So less defaults, no defaults as of now. Anyway, Adani Power has won a $3 billion Bihar thermal project. So clearly working. That's why good speech is coming. $3 billion Bihar thermal project. Nice. BPSL lenders are seeking 6,500 crores, 6,155. So one comment, Mr. Tarun says, I had read that Adani was given a contract for 16 airports construction without any prior experience. Now, just read between the lines, Mr. Tarun. Adani has been at the forefront of ports development. Does that count as experience? Can somebody who's made very successful ports, or should somebody who's made very successful ports be eligible for airport contracts? And are you only supposed to give airport contracts to contractors who built airports before? If that was the case, how does the industry begin, right? So basically a lot of BS floating around. But yeah, Adani is not without its fault. The group, they really went very close to the sun. And if Hindenburg hadn't happened, their debt would have been out of control and the group might have spiraled out of business, essentially. Their debt to equity ratio, the debt to EBITDA ratio, it was just extraordinary, and they could have blown apart, they could have blown up if not for Hindenburg. So Hindenburg came, and it came as a cautionary call, a word of caution, a word of reason, the voice of reason, the voice of sanity. And when Hindenburg came, Adani was forced to recalibrate its approach and be a little safe. So Hindenburg saved Adani. I had written an article which went viral, that how Hindenburg essentially saved Adani Group instead of hurting it. BPSL lenders seek 6,155 crores from JSW over delayed takeover. So JSW and BPSL case has been going on. Supreme Court has told that JSW's takeover of BPSL is illegal, so they've got to return BPSL. That happened. That's a very big case that we've discussed in depth. What JSW did was it delayed payments by 540 days to 900 days. It didn't pay those people. It didn't pay a lot of people. So lenders are saying that we need those payments for the time BPSL essentially did all those revenues and everything. So I'll just tell you the story. uh, the amount includes, the amount includes 2,500 crore to financial creditors and another 76 crores to operational creditors. Said besides earnings of 3,600 crores before interest, taxes, and depreciation, basically EBITDA, that BPSL generated between July 26, 2017, when the insolvency proceedings began, till March 26, 2021, when JSW Steel completed the acquisition. So they say the erstwhile committee of creditors allowed JSW to unjustly enrich by permitting delay in implementation and not seeking interest and EBITDA for such delayed implementation. Creditors were delayed by 540 and 900 days respectively. Financial creditors and operational creditors were delayed with all that money, right? That's why Supreme Court had said that these guys don't deserve to get BPSL. They pay for it. But the deal was done. Nothing could happen. Now BPSL lenders are talking about getting paid. Titan says, deal breaker. Tariffs not a deal breaker because Titan barely exports anything, right? 2% of its exports go to US. So that's that. Moving on. We've talked about how the exports investment in rupee is gonna get hurt. Economists are hopeful that ongoing trade talks between India and US will result in de-escalation of the crisis. 86.5% overall exports to US. If 50% tariffs remain in place for 12 months, India GDP could take 40 to 80 BPS hit. BPS is basis percentage points or something. It's 0.01%, right? So 80 BPS is basically 0.8%, right? So that's that. We've talked a lot about this, so we don't need to go further. Companies mull new manufacturing units to export to US. So companies are thinking about setting up new units in different countries. Let's say, we talked about this, right? The gem and jewelry guys were thinking about going to Dubai and exporting to US from there because 10 billion worth of exports and so on and so forth. So a lot of companies, even Amul and these FMCG companies, are looking at going outside India and setting their plants across the world to be able to benefit, by bypassing the tariff norms, just as China was doing. So when China got tariffs, everybody thought, oh hey, Vietnam is growing, right? Vietnam is growing so well. Nice. Everybody started praising Vietnam. But then they found out that Vietnam was just a router, It was basically a conduit of Chinese supplies. So Indian companies are looking at something like that now. Interesting. Indian consumer goods manufacturer companies like Amul and ITC are evaluating alternative production bases to send things to US. Moving on. Industry is high on cheap green ammonia. Latest prices discovered give boost to derivatives of green hydrogen in India. That's okay. Railways to ease lease policy with an eye on e-commerce revenue. So railways have a lot of land, and what they're thinking about is leasing or easing the leasing, easing the leasing of this land to infrastructure companies, essentially the logistics infrastructure play. Way bridges, assembly centers to be explicitly permitted, which is great news. As we talked about, logistics right now, India's we talked about, do you remember what was India's logistics percentage of total GDP? It was, I guess, it was earlier 15%. Now it's 10%. and they want to bring it to 9%, right? We discussed about this. I guess they want to bring it to 9%. It's already 10%. And every bit of money that you save on logistics, you bring the inflation down, you fasten the growth curve. It's just great. So railways easing the leasing might just be happening. Carrying more cargo, sorting, grading, packaging units allowed on railway land, favorable financial lease terms, aims better utilization of vacant land, explicit permitting for warehouses, silos, includes conveyor belts, decanting facilities, relaxed one direction goods movement rule. A lot of things from railway. Railway needs the money, and a good way to make money for the railways is using the land it has, because railways has a lot of land. Railway is amongst the largest holders of land in India, right? So if they are being able to better utilize that land, great. Indices fall near 1% but ends in green in on summit hopes. That's okay. People are thinking that there's going to be a summit, the tariffs are not permanent, and so on and so forth. RBI plans hefty penalty to make banks settle death claims fast. You know, so death claims which are given to kin, they face a lot of problems and delays by banking people. RBI says that we're going to heavily penalize you. There's going to be a 5,000 rupee per day kind of a thing, plus interest, plus a lot of things. Essentially, they want to expedite the process of people getting paid when their near one or dear one passes away, which is obviously a good news. Fast track, which is, unfortunately for people who are bereaved, this is great news. Settlement of claims for deposit accounts. For accounts without nominee, claims below 15 lakhs, indemnity bond, legal hire certificate, and so on and so forth. For account with nominees, death certificate and official will and testament. So it's gonna be quicker. 5,000 per every day, plus 4% per annum rate of interest for period of delay and deposits, if claims aren't settled within 15 days. So that's what they're thinking about. Co-lending norms, tech integration could prove a hurdle. So we discussed the co-lending norms. So RBI had talked about single window, default loss guarantee of 5% by the lending partner. A lot of tech integrations to be done by with the financial entity and the non-financial entity, and so on and so forth. So a lot of mixed views on that. Banks and NBFCs may go for more direct assignments as asset classification norms to differ. So it's a lot of clarity. So people are, it's more compliance, more clarity. More compliance part is hard, more clarity part is appreciated, and that's what the report is about. Together they slow, says the report. At the same time, the increased operational responsibilities, including mandatory escrow arrangements, enhanced due diligence, integration of co-lending protocols within internal credit policies, will require significant investment in compliance, technology, and governance. So, that's that. Under the earlier co-lending model, a sourcing partner could originate and hold a loan for few months before assigning it to the funding partner. Now it's just 15 days. The sourcing partner cannot hold the loan for more months. This staggered assignment window created flexibility in managing collaborating timelines. That flexibility is now gone. As per new norms, assignment must be completed within 15 days of the loan being originated. Loans must be sourced as per a jointly approved credit policy, and so on and so forth. Very complicated discussion, because if you go deep into this, it's just going to be a lot of numbers and a lot of paperwork. How's that paperwork handled, and so on and so forth. What kind of norms are you following there? What kind of norms are you following there? It's a complicated discussion, but philosophically, for understanding, the originator and the banking partner, they have to be in terms, and also the default loss guarantee has been specified 5% by the banking partner, and also the books need to be, they have to be on both books. So that's that. Moving on. Rupee closes flat amid FPI buying. RBI absorbs 49,000 crores through VRRR auction. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know what VRRR is, right? You know it, folks. You know it, right? Why do we do VRRR auctions? Can you give me an answer? We've discussed about this. Rates on new banking loans will fall by March. Nobody? Come on. To absorb the excess liquidity in the banking play, right? So that when banks are parking money, they can get interest and liquidity is sucked out of the system. You know the ideal liquidity that RBI wants for the Indian banking system, right? 2.5 lakh crores. So it reached 3.12 lakh crores, then 2.86 lakhs crores, and now 49,000 crores have been sucked out of the system. So that's that. Moving on, uh, OpenAI to bring more products. Sam Altman, when asked about how AI is leading to tech job losses, he said there is no evidence. So he's obviously, uh, you know, there's no evidence. So it's pretty big scumbag, man. Anyway, uh, PE firms pushing their portfolio companies to open GCCs in India. GCCs are rising because what India has is a lot of people, and if we can skill those people become like extremely cheap labor, which is the only leverage India has, right? So GCCs become cheap back offices of global companies. So that's awesome, right? So PE firms are pushing in. 1 in 3 mid-market GCCs to set up in India has been PE backed. Mid-market GCCs accounted for 59% of the GCCs incorporated in India. So a lot of action as far as GCC play is considered. Uh, Whenever says that there is no evidence, the line which I'm reminded of is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because there's no evidence doesn't mean it's not happening, right? So that's very important. Moving on, India's electronics exports up in Q1 of FY26. The last quarter was nice, 47%, 12.4 billion. Mobile phones main growth driver. So 46, India's electronics exports are expected to grow around 30% year on year to bench $50 billion by FY26. But the projection doesn't take into account the potential impact of US tariffs if they continue. So that's that. It's obviously a good news, but doesn't look as good. The country's total exports grew 38.6 in FY25 from 29 billion in FY24. And how much of this is smartphones, right? Mm, okay. 7 point. Mobile phone exports jumped to 7.6 billion to US. Okay. Total electronics exports surged 47 to 12.4 billion with 7.6 billion to US smartphones. So a lot of money there. Paytm has fired 4,600 people as discussed. Bharat Pay is swinging to profit. Lending always makes money. Financial services is looking at it. 6 crore PBT in FY25. Revenue 1,700 crores. Moving on. MapMy India has invested something in Zepto. 25 crore they've invested at a valuation of $5.6 billion. So that's that. Zepto has been trying to raise money, but it's not been able to. It's got very little amount of money, like 7.5 crore earlier, 25 crore now. And these are the only news items when it's trying to raise a lot of money, a huge amount of money. So that's a bit of a problem, but let's see what happens. Zepto has Motilal Oswal as one of the shareholders. So I guess raising money should not be a problem for Zepto, at least in the Indian market, right? Moving on. Highly conflicted. Trump has asked Intel CEO to step down. He says that this guy is extremely conflicted and Intel CEO needs to go. Now you might ask why? Why would Trump want the Intel CEO to get fired? He says he has invested in Chinese companies in the last 10 years, right? So Trump said, highly conflicted, CEO of Intel is highly conflicted, must resign immediately. There's no other solution to this problem. He says the Intel shares went down 4%. Now, US has given a $20 billion in loans and grants to Intel, right? In the Chips and Science Act to subsidize leading edge semiconductor producer. US wants to save Intel, of course. Now, Intel CEO invested at least 200 million in hundreds of Chinese advanced manufacturing and chip firms between 2012 and December 2024. So, that has happened. A source familiar with the matter said that Tan had divested from its positions, but his investments are showing as current. So, Chinese databases reviewed in April listed many of his investments as current. So Intel is already going through a very tough time. We discussed how Intel was trying the Hail Mary thing with Panther Lake 18A project, and now this. So times only get harder, right? Miss Arushi Bhatia says something. IT layoffs are not entirely because of AI. Many IT were overpaid as compared to other professions. Hiring earlier was brutal. People exploited and cracked that, hence cost cutting. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's not entirely because of AI. We've discussed this a lot, by the way. So, if a company is going bad, what does it make sense to say that, hey, we are screwed and that's why we are firing people, or does it make sense to say that we've found out a new technology which will enable us to be more efficient and that's why we are firing people? So obviously, a lot of layoffs are, shown as AI driven layoffs, but they're not really. So you're right. You're absolutely right. But saying that it's not causing job losses, or not admitting that that is a real risk, is just a plain white lie. That's what I was pointing out. So Mr. Elon Musk, you know what he calls Sam Altman? He calls him Scum Altman. It's just unbelievable, right? Putin Trump may meet next week. UAE possible venue. So Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin are going to meet next week. The world will be watching. India will be watching, because a lot depends on this particular conversation. The fate of a lot of businesses. Just imagine how luck plays a big part of your life. Right? You set up this company and you're looking at exporting to US. Indian government says that exports to US will grow 5x. From 100 billion, we have a target of 500 billion. So you set up a company, you spend like thousands of crores thinking about how you're going to export more and more electronics to US, and then suddenly you get hit by a bus, right? It's not all in your control. But the beauty is that it doesn't need to be, because it's a simulation. Right? This is a simulation. We discussed this yesterday. How many of you watched that? Just yesterday, we had an incredible thing discussed in the beginning of Thinker's Frequency, episode 74. How we talked about Google Genie, and it enables people to actually create their own world, right? So you wear that and you just walk and you're looking at a beach, and you can create people. So you put up a prompt, you say, I want this people to be selling something. I want somebody here selling something, right? And then that person sells something, and you walk out, and then you come back and that person is still selling something, right? Then you put down your glasses, the AI still exists, right? And the AI exists and people are there. They have life, they are sentient human beings. So you've essentially created a world where people exist, right? And soon that world keeps getting more and more real, more and more developed, more and more complete. As that world becomes complete, that person doesn't have any clue that, his understanding of the world just keeps improving, right? Because he's living in a world you created, and he's just living his life. Now, as it becomes better, it becomes indistinguishable from reality, right? It's as good as real. Now, if you could create a world for somebody else, right? What is the probability that the world you're living in is itself a simulation, right? It's created by somebody else. Just like you are gods to somebody, the simulation that you created. What's the probability that what you are living in is also a simulation, because the game has developed so well that it's as good as reality, right? In that case, the probability is almost 100%, because there's no better explanation for life, usually, so that's that's just incredible. And that also renews uh, humans relationship with religion and praying, right? Maybe those are hacks to the simulation. With that, the idea is that you don't need to be stressed. It's all a simulation. It's going to be fine. Whatever happens, it's going to be fine. It's just a movie, right? With that, we should come to the end of the 75th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis. Right before we punch in, it's 9:09. We're going to punch in anytime soon. I wish you have a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. A big thanks to Mr. Tarun, Mr. Tiwari, Miss Bhatia, and everybody else who joined. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.